So you're in perimenopause or menopause and you feel like a little bit of a stranger in your own body, you do not recognize this new version of yourself, and you just want someone to tell you what to do. Well, you're in the right place, because I'm going to show you a method that does not punish you for eating, it doesn't require hours at the gym, and it doesn't ignore that your hormones are actually doing something quite different at this stage of life. And I'm going to walk you through every single step. I'm Vinka, I'm a clinical nutritionist and I specialize in women's health and midlife. I've been doing this for over a decade. I've helped thousands of women in the same situation. And before I get into this, I actually want to be completely honest with you, because I'm not sitting here as someone who figured this out easily. I am sitting here as someone who gained 10 kilos during perimenopause while I was still eating really well, while still exercising and doing all the things I've always done. I had all the knowledge, obviously I'm a clinical nutritionist, I had all the knowledge I thought, I just didn't have a system built for this specific stage of life. So I went back to the research, I experimented on myself the same way I've worked with clients for years. In this video, I'm going to make a lot of these things click for you. What I'm going to share with you is built around 5 pillars, and these pillars stack on top of each other. So by the time you get to the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your body has been behaving the way it has and what to do about it. So let's get into it. Pillar 1 is around volume eating. The first thing I want to talk about is food, and I want to start by saying something that may surprise you a little bit actually, and that is you actually need to eat more, not less. I know, stick with me. If you've been through enough diets, and I'm guessing you have, you already know that restriction doesn't work long term. You can white knuckle it for maybe a week, maybe 2, and then really in the end hunger wins, because, and there's a really valid reason for this, because in perimenopause and menopause, when our estrogen drops, what it does is also take our satiety, our fullness hormone away with it. It also increases ghrelin, your hunger hormone, so you're hungrier and less satisfied with your food. So you're absolutely not imagining it, you are genuinely hungrier than you ever used to be. So what this means is your body is not broken, it's just the approach that we have been using has been broken and a little wrong for us at this stage of life. So here's what actually works: volume eating. The idea is actually quite simple. So a food's physical size and its calorie content are not the same thing. So your stomach fills up physically, it doesn't fill up by calorie counting. So if you fill it with high volume, low calorie foods like your vegetables, your lean protein, your legumes and fiber, you feel genuinely fuller and more satisfied on far fewer calories. Think about it this way: if you get a cup of spinach and a cup of olive oil, your cup of spinach is only going to be 7 calories, whereas your cup of oil is going to be nearly 2,000 calories. So both are a cup. And this is where volume eating is about building your plate around the foods that give you the most fullness for the fewest calories. And the plate formula is dead simple. So what you want to do is get half your plate full of vegetables, so pile them on, they're basically free. So that's the first half. Then the quarter of your plate is going to be protein, and I recommend at least 30 grams per meal. A quarter of your plate is going to be smart carbs, so you're looking at things like legumes, oats, potatoes, brown rice, and a lot of us as women have been told that these foods are the enemy. They are not the enemy, they just need to not dominate your plate. One extra swap that you can do to add more value to your volume eating is to actually eat your vegetables and your protein first before you touch the carbs, because research shows that just a single habit reduces your post-meal blood sugar spike by up to 75%. This is incredible. Most women honestly feel so much better after about day 3 or day 4 of doing this style of eating, and I often get messages from my clients who are doing this and they are gobsmacked by how much better they feel. I've actually had clients as well who didn't want to start doing this because it was so much more food than they were used to eating that they felt like they were going to put on weight. Some of them had been doing fasting, for example, prior, and were only eating 2 meals a day, less calories. So I absolutely love it when I get an email 2 weeks later from them saying that they're finally seeing the scales move. It's awesome. So the second pillar we're going to talk about is test, don't guess. Okay, this is my clinical specialty, and it's a thing that changes everything for women who've been told that their results are normal when they feel anything but. Here's the thing: if you've had some blood tests done and they've come back normal, what that's actually telling you is that you have not got a disease state, because the normal ranges are there just to let you know when you have a disorder or a disease. They're not there to tell you that you're well and healthy. So that's where we want to look at something called an optimal range, and this actually lets you know whether your body is functioning well. And it's that gap between the normal range and the optimal range, this little grey area I like to call it, where perimenopause and menopausal symptoms lie. I find it extremely important that as a perimenopause and menopausal woman and beyond, that we need to be doing more testing than normal, because when we lose our sex hormones, it puts us in a very inflammatory state, which it means that we're more prone to things like underactive thyroids, high blood sugars, cardiovascular risk, all of these things. We're really need to be keeping a good eye on. So what should we be testing? In my book there's 7 minimal tests that I really recommend that you test in this stage of life. The very first markers that I encourage you to test are your TSH and your free T4. Both of these are your thyroid markers, and what I see so often is that women are only testing their TSH, which is the message from the brain down to the thyroid telling it what to do. What unfortunately is missed for so many women is no one's testing your free T4, which is your thyroid hormone production, because we can be told what to do, a little bit like my children in the morning get told what to do, but it doesn't mean they actually listen. So to actually know what our thyroid's done about that message, we need to test your free T4. This is going to tell us really how strong your metabolism is. And why this is so important is I see so many women who are doing everything right with their diet and lifestyle, but not losing weight. And this is one of the reasons that I think a lot of women struggle, is their thyroid hormones are at suboptimal level. Honestly, the majority of people do not have ample levels of thyroid hormone. So if you're struggling with weight, then this is the first place that I would look. And the third marker that I like to test is CRP, or C-reactive protein. And I like to test this because it's an inflammatory marker. And when we lose estrogen and we get into this pro-inflammatory state, it's really important that we understand how much inflammation we have in our body, because inflammation really is the root cause of all disease. And it's also one of the areas that can hold you back from weight loss. And then I like to test what's called fasting insulin. And I use this one because it's the earliest marker that we have to detect any issues with your blood sugar management, much more earlier than just testing your blood glucose or HbA1c. And again, when we go through menopause and perimenopause, we really lose that responsiveness we have to insulin. And when we have too much insulin in our body, it's the biggest fat storing hormone there is. So it's important that we understand what your levels are looking like. And then the fifth marker I like to test is ferritin. This is a marker that shows us your iron stores, and I like to test this especially if you're in perimenopause, because we are more prone to heavier periods at this time, meaning more loss of blood and more loss of iron as a result. So testing can help ensure that you've got adequate levels. We really need good levels of iron for energy and mood and immune system and so much more. And then I like to test vitamin B12. I always get on my soapbox talking about vitamin B12 because there's such an epidemic of deficiency with this one, and really not a lot happens in the body without B12. So think your energy, your mood, your brain function all rely on good levels of B12. So I test that. And then the last test I like to test is vitamin D. So this is actually linked to weight, mood, immunity, insulin sensitivity, and when estrogen drops, your ability to absorb vitamin D also drops with it. All of these tests you can ask your GP to test, or you can even self-request them yourself. And the reason that I love blood testing so much is now no longer do you have to just follow a plan that every perimenopause or menopausal woman is doing and you're just guessing at what supplements to take. You can now tailor your nutrition, your lifestyle, and your supplementation to what your body actually needs and is telling you, which is so cool. And what this means is you may not even need to do any calorie restricting, because sometimes it's just your thyroid's being really sluggish, and if you address that and fix that, then your metabolism can crank back into action and help you lose weight that way. So I find this one of the most important pillars. And I just have to share this example of one of my really wonderful clients. She was doing so many awesome things. So she was doing pillar 1, where she was doing the volume eating, she was doing her strength training, she was in a calorie restriction, but she wasn't seeing any results, and she'd put off getting the blood tests done. But I encouraged her to get them done, and what happened was, when we got them back, is we saw that her thyroid was not outside the normal range, but it was definitely below optimal, and this was really holding her back and causing her metabolism to be so sluggish. So when we worked on getting those thyroid levels back into an optimal range, she finally started getting results. So cool. Okay, so now we're going to jump into pillar 3, which is called build the engine. I'm going to tell you something that I personally resisted for years, and that is to lift heavy weights. I grew up on a dairy farm. I didn't go to the gym. I was actually told that you did not need to go to the gym, you just need to work harder. I'm also a real avid gardener, so I thought my wheelbarrowing and my digging lots of dirt would be enough to keep my muscles strong. However, when I hit perimenopause, I started becoming part of the statistics, which is where women who hit perimenopause lose 10% of their muscle every decade. And I started noticing real changes in my strength, which I did not like. I've always been strong. So what I did is went back to the research to look at what we need to do at this stage of life to encourage that muscle growth. Because when our estrogen declines, your body's ability to regenerate the cells that build and maintain your muscle can actually drop by 60%. I just want to say that again, 60%. So maintaining the muscle that you do have is becoming harder, and also building new muscle gets even harder. And the only tool that compensates for this loss is resistance training. Nothing else does this. It really isn't about vanity at this stage. It's about your metabolism, because when we have more muscle, it burns significantly more calories at rest than fat tissue does. Every kilo of muscle you carry burns calories around the clock. Fat cells do not do that. Even your brain is impacted by muscle tissue, particularly, believe it or not, your quads and hamstrings. So lifting weights releases something called BDNF, which is really the fertilizer for your brain. As a result, strong leg muscles are actually one of the strongest physical predictors we have of cognitive health as we age. Amazing. Also, your muscle protects your bones, so resistance training is the only exercise that actually signals your bones to maintain their density. So when we do exercise, we're all very familiar with that release of endorphins, but it also reduces your cortisol and improves your production of serotonin, which is your happy hormone, and it does that within minutes. Now, before you panic, I'm not asking you to become a gym person. The minimum effective dose is 2 sessions a week, around 30 to 45 minutes. That's it. That's enough to make a really meaningful difference. Also, what we need to build this engine is protein. So we need a lot more than you think, between 1.6 to 2 grams per kilo of body weight. Now, that's your ideal body weight. So if you want to be 70 kilos, for example, then you want to aim for around 112 to 140 grams of protein daily. You can spread that across 3 meals per day, or you can add it into some snacks as you go. But I like to have the target of every single meal that I have, main meal, has to have at least 30 grams of protein. And the reason this is so important is because as soon as we hit perimenopause, menopause and beyond, your body becomes less responsive to protein's muscle building signal. You have to give it more protein to get those same results with triggering that muscle building. And the next pillar is around building habits that stick. Now, this is one that I see missed on so many programs because motivation only lasts so long. We get maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks, and then the wheels get a little bit wobbly and we find it really hard to stick to things. I find the women who get lasting results actually aren't the ones who are the most disciplined. They're just the ones who make the right choices easier and the wrong choices harder. And they've stopped relying on motivation, which is really unreliable. And they instead start designing their environment so their healthy choice was always the path of least resistance. And one of the habits I particularly love comes from a book called Atomic Habits, written by James Clear. He uses something called habit stacking, and the formula is really simple. So you go after something you already do, I will do the new habit. For example, after I turn the jug on, which is your old habit, I will do 2 minutes of lunging around the house, which is your new habit. So after old habit, I will then add on new habit. You can do this in so many different ways. So after I have dinner, I will go for a 10-minute walk. After I pick up my fork, I will eat my vegetables on my plate first. Really, it's limitless how many things that you can do here. And one other area that I find extremely important to work on in this stage of life is to take away the guilt, because so often women are, oh my gosh, I didn't eat perfectly, so I've completely stuffed it up. I'm going to have to start again on Monday, the old Monday diet. Whereas if you just have this mindset shift where you never miss twice. So one bad meal doesn't mean that you've ruined your whole healthy eating plan, because the next meal you have, you're going to be back on track. Or if you miss one gym session, it hasn't undone every single gym session you've done today. Because I find when we take away the guilt and we actually give ourselves a little bit of love and kindness for all the things that we do in our day, then it can make this experience so much more enjoyable and less stressful. And final pillar is sleep. The multiplier is what I call it. I've saved this one to last because this is the area that can make everything you've done in pillar 1 to 4 work really well, or go the complete opposite way for you. So when we hit perimenopause and menopause and we have these massive shifts in hormones, it can really impact not just the quantity of sleep you have, but the quality of sleep. And to highlight this, I'm going to share this really cool research paper that was done, and it had 2 groups. They were both on a calorie restricted diet. One slept for 8.5 hours, one slept for 5.5 hours. They actually both lost the same amount of weight overall, but the group that slept for 8.5 hours, over 50% of what they lost was fat. However, those that were in the 5.5 hour sleep group, only 25% of what they lost was fat, and 60% of what they lost actually came from their muscle tissue. It was exactly the same diet, but they got very different results. And what sleep deprivation also does is raise your ghrelin and suppresses your leptin. These are 2 hormones that control your satiety and your hunger. So you are hungrier and you're not satisfied as much with your food. And as a result, the next day after a poor sleep, the studies have shown that people consumed around 300 to 500 extra calories per day without even trying. So what's actually happening is when we hit perimenopause, from that moment onwards, we actually start losing progesterone. So what that looks like is you really struggle to get to sleep at night, because progesterone is really important for that beginning part of your sleep, but also helping you get back to sleep if you wake up in the middle of the night. And what also happens is the loss of estrogen as soon as we hit perimenopause and menopause. When that drops, so does your thermostat. That's what keeps you waking up really hot in the middle of the night. But also melatonin. We need estrogen to actually make melatonin, your sleep hormone. And just to add in a little extra here, your cortisol, which naturally rises around 6 in the morning gently, now starts peaking really high at around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And that spike just wakes you right up, and sometimes you can even have a mini panic attack at this time for a lot of women. And what we usually do when we have a little bit of a cortisol spike in the middle of the night is we had progesterone there to help us calm us back down and get back to sleep. But now, instead of a gentle rise in cortisol, we're having a massive spike which wakes us completely awake, and then we've got no progesterone here to help us calm back down. So what that looks like for us as a woman is our quantity and quality of sleep has been impacted by the loss of these hormones. There are some practical things that you can do to actually help. One of them is morning sunlight within the first hour of waking. This sets your circadian clock and starts a 12 to 14 hour countdown to melatonin release. Because when we get that morning light on our eyeballs, we're then going to be able to produce melatonin around 12 to 14 hours later. Also, what's important to do is keep your bedroom cool, dark and phone free, because a phone in bed actually suppresses your melatonin by 50% and delays your melatonin peak by up to 3 hours. And a supplement that's been shown to help in the research is magnesium glycinate, 200 to 400 milligrams, 30 to 60 minutes before bed. And one area that I see so many women haven't done is actually testing your estrogen, which is called estradiol, in your blood work. Because if you are on HRT, then we want to make sure that the level that you are taking in terms of the dose of estrogen is the right level for you, because there is a certain level that actually gives you the preventative health benefits of estrogen in your blood work. So we know that to get good bone health, even potentially sleep and metabolism, all rely on you getting a level of estrogen in your blood work that is meeting those optimal ranges. And because there is actually a large number of women who don't absorb estrogen through the skin very well, it's really important that you check your levels to ensure you're on the right dose. So let's bring this all together. You've got 5 pillars. You start with the volume eating, because when you're not spending your day fighting hunger, then everything else becomes a lot easier. Then you add in your blood testing, because when you know what's actually happening under the hood, you stop guessing and start acting with a lot more precision. Then you jump into building muscle, because muscle is your metabolic engine, your brain protector, your bone insurance, and it gets harder to build with every single year that you wait. Then you build habits that make those first 3 pillars seem automatic rather than relying on motivation. And then what you do is you protect your sleep, because that amplifies every single thing you've done in the pillars before. These pillars are not a 6-week fix. They are a method, a strategy, a way for you to understand your body and live in this stage of life. And this is the part I really want you to hear, because your body is not broken. If things haven't worked for you before, that's not evidence that you can't lose weight or get healthy. All it is evidence that the approach wasn't right for your body and at this stage of life, because perimenopause and menopause changes those rules. So the method that I've just discussed is really built around the new rules that we need to apply. Now, I've kept the name of the method out of this video on purpose, because honestly, what I wanted to share with you today was the why behind it all, the science, the real reasons. I didn't want to do a program pitch. But if you do want to go deeper, if you want the meal plans, the blood test guides, the workout structure, the habit tracking, the full 6-week system with live sessions and a community of women doing it alongside you, then I'll put the link in the description below. The program's called the White Jeans Method, and I only run a handful of these every year. The reason being that I like to be fully active in every single one that I run. I'm on support 7 days a week to ensure that every single question you have gets answered. I also offer a full money back guarantee if you don't get any value from the course, because I know so many of you have spent thousands of dollars, so many hours doing courses that haven't worked for you, so I do offer that as well. And if you got some value from this video, then please share it with a woman you know who needs it, because so many women are blaming themselves for something that was never their fault.